Alright, this is basic report building. I've now got a P&L and balance sheet. I don't have a cash flow statement yet, but I want to start to build some financials that I can export to Excel, send to a customer, client, what have you. So this is actually one of my favorite features of Adaptive. I could jump into reports. I'm going to create a new shared report. The one I use 99% of the time is the matrix report. And Adaptive has a few that come with it, but I find that they're not very helpful. So I'm going to make my own matrix report. I'm going to call this financials. And the first thing I want to do, this is kind of a basic breakdown where the columns go on the top and the rows go on the left. There's some modifiers we can do later. But the first thing I really need is a time span element. And I prefer, you can certainly grab single months and do whatever you want, but for something like financials, I just use this time span. I drag that right out here. Then I can right click on it and say properties and actually define the exact time span I want. So for this particular company, I'm going to start in like January 2012 and go out to 2014. I do want to show months, quarters, and years and save that. And then it's just a matter of, okay, well, what do I want to show on this report? I'm going to pick some accounts. Let's start with the P&L. I have my own custom GAAP P&L, and however you drag it out onto this, it will remember. So if I keep these collapsed, it'll be nice and concise. I do want to expand that one, maybe that one, and now drag it out here. Now later you can change that by saying properties on this, and maybe I wanted COGS expanded or something like that, and if you save it, it will remember how you like your layout. On top of that, I want to add a little space. I'm going to put a blank spacer in there, and I like to rename them or give them some color sometimes. We can play with that later. But then I roll into the actual balance sheet I want to show next. So I want to show cash. I can collapse fixed assets, or maybe I do show that or that. I'm going to drag my assets out here. And then I need my liabilities and equity, and I do want to show a little detail here. Payables. I want to show the equity. Something like that. Maybe this will be nice, concise, and small. Easy to read P&L and balance sheet. Last but not least, I want to put another spacer in the cash flow statement in there. So I scroll down, find my space, and go get that cash flow statement, which is in the custom accounts. And same thing, I want to expand this stuff, show a little detail. Even though we haven't coded this yet, I at least want the report to be set up and ready. Now I'm ready to save that. I'm going to save it in my shared reports. Call it financial. This is actually the 2012-2014 financials. And you can run it immediately on screen. I'm going to do another video later about reporting on screen, but generally 9 times out of 10 the client will want it in Excel so they can put it in a slide or do something with it. So I like to do this. I like to make a template, and I'll show you how I do it. I export this to Excel and give my Mac a second to open that up. And it will come out looking pretty raw at first. I'll show you what I mean. This is what it looks like. So the way Adaptive works is it constantly refreshes these two tabs. This would tell me the version I was running, which I can put in a footer or something of the report, what currency I'm in and what plan I ran it on. Report data is actually just values that get refreshed by Adaptive. So you never really want to change anything on this sheet because it'll always be rewritten every time I run the report. So what we do at CFO Tools is I move or copy this to the end, create a copy, and then I tie this back in basically. So I say this just equals this first cell here, copy that guy, and cover the entire sheet with this formula. So basically this is a big lookup sheet all the way back to the beginning. So I'm going to paste those formulas throughout the whole thing. But I often like to show my dollars in thousands, so I am going to modify this just a slight. Copy that and repaste it just over the numbers all the way down to there. And you'll notice the bottom is where I put that cash flow statement, and it is blank because I haven't done anything adaptive yet, but when I do, numbers will show up here. So now we're getting ready. I sometimes rename this thing and call this formatted. Sometimes I make another one, call it slide, something like that. But now we're ready to actually format this thing. So I'm not going to do a whole lot on this instructional video, but I'm going to just show you the basics where, set my columns, throw some underlines in here. There's an underline. I'm going to want to underline here. Whoops. There's an underline. I'm going to want an underline here, here, and I'll do a hard underline down here. I also like to set my numbers to accounting so I don't see all those zeros. And this is just completely, everyone will have their own method of doing this. Maybe I'll hard line this with the top and bottom. And then I know I had actuals through June or July. So everyone likes to know what their actuals are. I think they were through July. And then I often shade those actual columns. This is about all I'm going to do, except I want to show you some grouping. And a lot of people like these things grouped. So you can come back later and decide exactly what you want to show on your report. So I'm going to just do some quick grouping. You can also set the print ranges. You can add charts. I mean, you can do anything you want to do in Excel. And now we're going to upload this back to Adaptive. So I'm going to save this to my desktop. I just give it a dummy name because I'm going to delete it in a few minutes. But template. And now let's go back to Adaptive. And this is where it gets really cool, because I could go modify that. I could send that to one of my Excel gurus and have them put charts on there and add a whole bunch of stuff, slides, etc. But the trick is to right click on that report you built and say attach template. And this will store that Excel file in the adaptive planning system so that when I run it again, by the way, I'm just selecting that template I built with the browse button and saying okay. Every time I run this report now, it's going to kick it out to that Excel file by refreshing those first two sheets. So when that's done, notice I have a green icon here. Green says there's a Excel template here and it's going to run into Excel. So now I'm just going to pop this guy open and look at immediately it's downloading an Excel file this time. If I pop this guy open, I've made changes or someone else has made changes to the numbers, boom, I've got this. These all reference back to this sheet that Adaptive is constantly refreshing, and I've got a cool formatted report here. That is about it as far as reports go for now. Thank you.